once you can get past the second guessing and going with the stuff that clicks in first thing, that's usually the right way to go, and step through the flame of fire of fear, everything is just meant to make your life easier. The struggle is really us trying to swim upstream instead of just lifting our feet up and letting the current take us where spirit wants us to be. There's a pre-plan that we may or may not be conscious of. And I've learned through my life anyways so far that if you just give into it and trust, I am a big component of faith. The more faith you have, the more likely you're going to really make an amazing empire for yourself in one way or another. I would definitely say let go of the fear. Don't let fear drive the car, because it's always going to drive you in the wrong direction of where you're going to be. Fear is a big component for everybody, and it was definitely a big component for me through my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Fear of being different, fear of success, fear of living your purpose. Control the fear, realize that it doesn't control every choice you make, and trusting the unknown, because the mystery is where the magic is.
Hello, and thanks for listening. I'm your host, Donnabelle, and welcome back for another episode of To Hum is Human, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. I think you're going to really enjoy today's episode. It's trusting the journey, surrendering to your path. Because what if the feelings you spent your life brushing off were actually guidance? Or maybe what if the things you called too emotional or just spidey senses were actually your gifts? Whether you're standing at the edge of a big leap or just waking up to your own inner wisdom, my next guest story will inspire you to stop resisting and start listening. James O. Joseph Jr., known as the Unintentional Psychic, is a professional psychic medium, Reiki and IET practitioner, and intuitive business coach. He owns Phoenix Rising Synergy Center in Queensbury, New York, and has conducted over 2,000 readings since launching his business in 2021. James is trained with elite mediums Lisa Williams and Drew Calley, and served at the stump of Lily Dale Assembly, the largest spiritualist community in the world. And he regularly shares messages through live events and platform demonstrations. And after years of resisting his empathic and intuitive gifts, a significant event became a turning point for James. Now he mentors others on their psychic paths and offers heartfelt, spirit-guided readings to help people heal, grow, and realign with their purpose. Welcome, James.
Thank you so much for having me. That was awesome. Boy, I need you to do my intros all the time.
James, I know the first thing was you call yourself the Unintentional Psychic, but what did you call yourself before that?
Just James. While all this was happening for me in between 2015 and 2019, I actually owned a very well-established gift business that specialized in gift baskets and stuff called Sharp Presents. I was very active with that business that I ran, created from nothing to something for years, actually twice, once in Michigan and then closed it down for a number of years and then reopened it once I was reestablished here in New York State.
Oh my gosh, gift baskets. That's a very specific niche. So what led you to that?
Well, my background and my training, not that I'm certified, is design. I went to a private university in Michigan, Lawrence Technical University, for architecture and interior art. That was actually the three-dimensional world plan kind of scenario. And then, to be very honest, it all happened quite by accident. Nothing's really accident. But as I was working in a graphic design department, I had one person ask me to create this romance basket for them. And then after that, another person, and then another person, and another person. And then the owner of the graphic design company had to beg me to stay, as I chose to leave my day job and open up the gift basket business called Sharp Presents. So that went for a number of years in Michigan, and then we closed it down and then soon moved in 2009 to New York. I continued to raise my three children. And then it all sort of just happened again, almost like it wasn't done the first time around. Spirit led in that sense too. So yeah, that's what I did before this. In November of 2022, which I'd already part-time established as a professional psychic medium, I closed down Sharp Presence so I could give it my full focus, which for me is a struggle. I have a lot of interest, and for some reason, I feel the need to try and push all of the interest 110%. It was really doing quite well.
I'm
Yeah,
with you
and it
there.
was doing quite well. But a couple months before I closed, I started hearing this message. It was time to get off the train before it hit the end of the tracks. Between September of 2022 and the end of November, I'm like, okay, I'm coming to terms with this, and just left. I just literally announced it on November 1st and closed down at the end of November and never really looked back. People ask me a lot of times if I want to do it still or if I miss it. Just last week, I had two people asking me if I would start creating designs again. I don't toot my horn much about anything, but I have a very natural skill set for just throwing things together and they just looking artistically touched.
Well, you've spoken about spidey senses and strong emotions growing up. How did you process those early experiences? Because I'm imagining those senses were actually informing you during this business, but we'll talk later about how it's currently informing you now. But how did you process those early experiences before you even had language or context for what they really were?
It's really interesting in the sense that when I was much younger in my teens, I was overwhelmed by emotion sometimes, and I used to call it the purple haze. And it would be this scenario of going from intense joy to sadness, all like a swirl. And I used to call it the purple haze. I had no idea what it was, and nobody knew what to do with me. All the other stuff just sort of would appear when you least expect it. Maybe you're just living life and then something pops into your head. I never tried to put a pin on it. I never really tried to determine. My plan was really just to be this normal guy that had a family and had a career and just keep moving. Don't pop your head up above society. So I really tried not to put a lot of thought into it. I was always attracted to psychic fairs and health fairs and stuff. So while I was in college, I used to go off on weekends and go visit psychic fairs and stuff like that. And I had a really intense situation happen with a spirit guide portrait artist. And after that, any interest that I had, I just shut right down. I started running from it. So I locked it out.
Really? May I ask what the portrait was?
Yeah, of course. There was this woman. I don't know why I still remember her name, Elaine Regis. And she was just at a local psychic fair. And I had $30 burning a hole in my pocket. And she did spirit guide portraits. And it wasn't so much the spirit guide portrait, which I still have over 30 years later. I still have it. But it was the experience because I had to wait my turn, obviously. I'm like 21, 22. And she's like, okay, well, I have to hold your hands just for a minute or two to get the energy. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. So she touched my hands and then she flew 6.5 feet backwards on her back end in the middle of a psychic fair. This lady was in her late 60s, early 70s. So the whole room stopped and everybody started to freak out. And she was like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. She gets up. For the next 45 minutes, all she talked about to this 21-year-old college student who's trying to get his degree in architecture about how I should be doing spirit guide portraits right now, how she would do anything she could to help me. And that's how the whole chatter was. And in my head, when she fell down, I'm like, well, you already have my money. So I don't know why you're being like so dramatic about it. It just was so surreal. It freaked me out. So after that, I mean, I still have this amazing portrait. And I actually started doing spirit guide portraits for myself after that. A couple were popping in really hard. But other than that, I just boxed everything up that was new age and I just like shoved it in a closet and I ran for 20, 30 years.
Wow. It's a very visceral response. And most of our listeners probably have never even heard of what a spirit guide art portrait is. Could you just explain what that is?
Yeah. So with Elaine, she had a bunch of different colored papers, portrait size. So whatever, 18 by 24. And then color pencils, chalks. She literally would get the energy of her client and then she would draw from however her senses would. For me, I have psychic seeing, so I see imagery in my mind. I'm assuming hers was probably similar. So she would see an image of a primary spirit guide and she would draw that spirit guide. And then she would put the name down in the corner, and that was her service. And she was really good at it and very quick. By all means, the art looked real, and it still does. So I do something similar, but I also have not done some portrait art in a while. So I'm trying to not be so rusty. But my background is definitely in the arts field. So that's pretty much it.
It may sort of find time.
Yeah, well, I am not the king of
It may find it's time to bubble up with you.
it's a busy life these days, that's for sure. So balancing everything is yeah.
Yes. Well, when you decide to say yes, things just start flowing through. So I imagine that's where you are right now. But a pivotal moment happened in 2015 that changed your life
Yeah.
forever. Can you walk us through that period in your life?
So obviously, as I said, I was the runner. I mean, I ran probably really solid for a long time. In October of 2015, my father passed over, and I'm in New York, and most of my family's in Michigan, if not in the South. My father spiritually connected with me and told me he was passed over before any of my living family members could even tell me that he had passed yet. He had passed of a massive heart attack. And then my father continued to share psychic hearing messages with me. For me, psychic hearing is sort of like back here instead of your ear, like behind your ear. And so from 2015 to 2018, 19, my dad continued to share messages with me about what he needed me to do to help my mom. And I would openly share with my mom, my family, the messages that I was receiving. And not once did they or I think I was crazy or a medium. It just really hadn't clicked. But looking back on it now, it was literally the time trigger to force me to really confront it finally. So everything was really cool. And I had a number of very energetically heavy people leave my life towards the end of 2018, not pass over, but they just sort of wandered away. And then in 2019, I had a really intense situation happen where I was driving and like this, and the only way I can describe it is like an energy wave that just sort of rolled over me and gave me vertigo while I was driving. And then after that, all of, as you said, my spidey senses, which I still hadn't really gotten a solid grip on because I'd been running, all leveled up. They all leveled up like to an 11. And then I started psychically hearing, it is time to step forward. It is time to Phoenix. And that's what forced me to have this coming to Jesus moment where I finally like, okay, well, this is obviously much bigger than just me, this meat suit. And I came to an agreement with spirit. You show me the way and I can't say no. So it helps me alleviate the ego and it helps me to alleviate the fear a little bit. So when something comes into my life that I feel is put there because of spirit, it's an opportunity or an experience. And if I know it's from spirit, I can't say no. I have to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's how I've been living my life since mid 2019.
Now, James, I want to go back actually to the moment you connected with your father and then just started speaking about what he was saying to your family. Now, this must have been a really confusing and emotional time. First of all, you had just lost a significant member of your family, but then all of a sudden you're sharing messages and information from him, and they didn't even know this about you, nor did you. So how did people even interact with that at all? Were they surprised? Were they shocked? Did they not believe you?
They took it with a grain of salt, but I'd also had some other really off the wall things happen to me in the last 10 or 20 years before that. I knew that my first child was coming to us months before the adoption went through. It wasn't like it came completely out of nowhere because I would do and have unusual experiences or know information that just I shouldn't have known. So I was always somewhat the wild card, so it didn't totally knock anybody off base, but they also took it with a grain of salt. My dad passing was hard, but I also have this really intense, I've never seen death the same way as anybody else that I've ever met. As far back as I can remember, it's never been the severity that everybody else sees it to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with where people are in their belief systems, right? So belief systems dictate how they perceive the world and how they see death and how they see life. And when you come from a place already feeling like it's just a change, it's not necessarily the end, that guides you as you keep working. Now, when you go forward, fast forward to 2019, you start your new endeavor, and it's called the Phoenix Rising Synergy Center. First of all, tell us about the name, and then what happened? Like, why all of a sudden a switch went on for you?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a gap time between 2019 and when the Phoenix Rising Synergy Center opened. It really actually was a couple of years. I originally started my business under the name Reiki Rising, which nobody knows anymore because originally I had really just done Reiki because I was such a coward to fully step into my power at that point in time. So I
Mm.
actually did some training with Drew.
Oh, you were
Yeah.
dipping your
Yeah,
toes.
actually did some professional training with Drew Cali in the early 2020s. I got certified as a Reiki 1, Reiki 2 practitioner January 6th and 7th. And then I started Drew's class on January 7th also. And I did his in person class for 3 months, 3.5 months before COVID kicked in. So I would drive down to New Jersey once a week, 3 hours, 15 minutes one way to be an in person mediumship class. Then, yeah. Well, he suggested doing it virtual, but I just, of course, kept getting this like you have to be there kind of scenario, which wasn't the funnest thing because that means that I was driving home at
Mhm,
like
mhm.
1:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh, why did you stay?
Um, Naive, I guess. I don't know. I just would drive 3 hours, 15 minutes. We'd do a 3 hour class, and then I would drive home 3 hours. I don't know how I got home sometimes, honestly. It was crazy.
I
COVID swept in for a while, and everybody was sort of on a pause. In August, September of 2020, I heard the team say it's time to get started again. And by January of 21, I had my first office. And so then I did Reiki sessions, and from 2021 to 2023, I was working on Reiki, but I was starting to do psychic fairs and start doing more and more readings, getting more comfortable with that. And then January of 2024, I opened the Phoenix Rising Synergy Center. So that's when that really happened. And it all happened by mistake, which is what my chapter in the book is about that we've both been authors in. It really fell in my lap, and I really didn't have any foresight on it. And it's been the most amazing trip so far. I'm actually in the process right now of doubling my space at the Phoenix Rising Energy Center. The landlords are working on a whole second office suite for me. So just growing, going, moving.
just growing and growing. Phoenix Rising, that has so many connotations. What is that for you?
It has a lot to do with that summer in 2019 when they said it was time to Phoenix, time to step forward. It's really, for me, symbolic of lighting your own flame and being the brightest example of yourself. For me, it's also this element of constantly embracing transformation and change, reaching for the highest potential. In many ways, and I don't mean to sound weird in any way, in many ways, I feel like I'm the personification of a phoenix. I am constantly transforming, growing, stepping 2 steps back to step 5 steps forward. But also in that aspect, I'm instigating other people to be their own version of that too. Does that all make sense?
I mean, that's such a powerful symbol. It just gives me so many visuals regarding what that means to
Yeah.
rise from the ashes. Like, essentially, when you hear about Phoenix rising, it's like a considerable amount of turbulence or change or things that are just uncomfortable, then coming out of that into a place of ownership and power. And that's a big moment in someone's life. And I imagine, as you being what you call an instigator in that process, has got to be so powerful. What I would love to talk about, actually, because I always love when things just get started, because that to me is like the juicy part. When you first worked your very first psychic fair as a reader, what was that like for you? What was going through your mind, your very first one?
You know exactly what to talk
You were
about. You
laughing.
know exactly what to talk about. So obviously Spirit had convinced me to sign up for the psychic fair, and it was in March of 21. And I didn't really want to do it, but once again, I had this agreement. You show me and I have to do it. So I'm going to be very honest with you. I took all my Oracle decks thinking that nobody was going to sit with me. So I would need something to do. So seriously, I cried all the way there. And then when I got there, I sat in the car and I begged not to have to go in, continued to cry. I put on my big boy face and got cleaned up, and I went in, had no idea how much I was charging, had no sign up sheet, had nothing. So I go in and there's 8 other people who are doing readings in the area that I'm in. And so they're like, how much you charging? I'm like, $15 for 15 minutes. And they're like, hell no, you're not. We're not charging anything less than $45 for 15 minutes. So you can't undercut us. You can't overcut us. So, and I'm like, well, I don't even have a sign up sheet. And so another person's like, well, here's my COVID sheet. You can use that as a sign up sheet. I didn't think anybody was going to sit with me. And so the Christine Sibo, who's a well known psychic medium in our area, who created the event, And for whatever reason, she chose to walk my first client over to me, which was interesting in itself. But I ended up doing 25 readings that day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I had people crying, not bad crying, but like either happy crying or healing crying, and I was just rubbing the hell out of the table. I don't know why, but my hands were just like rubbing the table. I don't really do that now, sort of like Tyler Henry does scribbles. So I'm here,
Mhm,
I'm into
mhm.
like my fourth reading, and I run over to see who my next one is because I realize I have a full day. I would not have eaten that day except somebody scheduled a 15-minute unit and then chose not to show up. So that was the only reason I got to eat that day because I didn't think I was going to be busy. And then Christine Siebel's like, "Hey, I see you have a bunch of cards with you. Do you use those?" And I was like, "Well, no, I use them personally, but I don't use them for clients." She's like, "Good, they're a crutch. You don't need them." And I was just like, "Okay." So that event blew my mind. Blew my mind. Once that event was done, the rest of that day and the whole next day, I didn't speak to anybody. It was just so surreal. And I'm like, where'd it come from? What's going on? How is this happening? And that is my very first psychic event. I'm always learning new stuff and I'm really enjoying it. But what I really, really love that makes it all worth it for me is that I help heal, uplift, or support. If I'm not doing at least one of those things, then I'm wasting my client's time and my time. And as you know from my name, the Unintentional Psychic, it wasn't on my bingo card list for this life cycle as far as I knew. I don't want to waste anybody's time. It was really quite an eye opener.
Well, just listening to how it all unfolded is kind of shocking, but not really. You understand that, well, I'm totally trusting that when I go there, I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And you just went in there blindly, even though you resisted in the car. Like there were so many things that just made you just want to turn around and drive back home. You honored your statement when you're saying, if you show me, then I will go. And how validating to have all those things just line itself up for you that day. And then to see and witness the transformation of
Yeah.
other people who came to see you and talk with you, like that had to be so validating in so many ways. Those are one of the experiences in life that I feel like you just go, what just happened there? I don't know what was coming through me, but thank you. And I guess this is what I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. And how beautiful was that? That was just a pivotal moment for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, things probably just started snowballing afterwards. Is that true? Is that fair to
Yeah.
say?
For sure.
Pretty much. Now, you own Phoenix Rising Synergy Center, which I just love that name, and you mentor students in mediumship and psychic development. How did your personal journey shape the way you now teach and serve others?
Both in my readings and how I teach, it's very casual. I don't believe that it has to ever be this formal. Psychic mediums and psychics that I've known from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they tried to make it seem like a pedestal. There was this amazing uniqueness to it. And my truth is that everybody has the ability. Everybody does. It's just some people, for whatever reason, just don't connect as strongly or needs a little more help with it. So I try to make it very everyday. It's very casual. So even in my sessions at my office, when I'm just doing one-on-one readings, it's very much like having coffee with James. And I just babble out stuff that you would have thought we would have talked about last week when we met up, kind of thing. But it's information I completely should not know, kind of thing. And I do the same thing with the mentoring.
Right.
The mentoring on group sessions, one-on-one mentoring, I'm just very everyday. And I just try to be as authentic as possible.
Well, there's something about making things accessible to people. To some degree, that is the nature behind this podcast, is essentially that since we're all connected and we're all sort of the same, we all have these innate abilities to varying degrees. And perhaps some it's more focused and some just need a little encouragement, or some just need to just learn to trust and listen to their own instincts or gut intuition. I love that everyone has different ways of reaching out to people who do come to you and who come to seek some sort of guidance. I'm curious about how your background in Reiki and IET have enhanced your mediumship and coaching
Well, it's
experience.
interesting because both of those were also spirit led. I wouldn't have done them unless the team had said do it kind of thing. For me, especially with the Reiki, it was very important to get both level 1 and level 2 done before I started my training with Drew Kelly. I was actually a bit under the gun to get those done in time. And for some reason, it was pivotal. I don't know why, really, other than it just allowed me to connect more with the natural ability that I always had with Reiki, anyways. As far back as I can remember, I've always been a hands on healer of sorts. If I gave somebody a massage, as soon as I touched them, I knew exactly where the knot was or the muscle issues were. Now, these days, I don't feel the need to touch for Reiki. I never touch, even though my clients think that I am touching them, but I don't. I think the Reiki and the IET were just to open me up more, or maybe for the alignment processes to happen and just give me a clearer channel. I'm a level 3 IET, which is integrated energy therapy practitioner.
Can you explain what that is for most people who don't know what that is?
To dumb it down, and anybody that does IET will probably give me the no. It's basically Reiki with angel energy. So it's a very similar modality to Reiki.
Mm,
It just, instead of coming from universal Reiki healing energy, universal energy, it comes from a level of angel energy.
that's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
I'm classified as a level 3, but
Oh.
I really don't do a whole lot with IET because they mandate that you touch the body, and I don't feel like I need to touch people. I don't know why. I don't have any like hang-ups
Hmm.
about it or
Hmm.
anything, but yeah.
A lot of people who tune in aren't necessarily professional intuitives or have been exposed to these types of modalities. So it's always, for me, like a learning tool to see all the different ways in which people, serve others. And so I'd like to switch topics now because you are also an author and you are one of 22 authors, co-authors of the lead author, Deb DeSelle's book, The Intuitive Entrepreneur, Deeper Connections for Soul-Driven Success. There's something about this book that speaks so dearly to me, but yeah, you have a copy of it and you definitely can get the copies now. But for people who are just starting out in business or who currently have a business, because you have been a business owner of several endeavors. And so what is the title of your chapter? And can you give us a taste? You don't need to tell us the whole thing of what we can look forward to in reading this book, because it's quite a groundbreaking book, I think, when people think about how to think and look at their businesses differently.
Yeah. The title for me is The Power of Intuition, Trusting the Path of Spirit. So obviously not just in my business, but that's pretty much how I live my life, especially since 2019. I'm chapter 10 in the book, is legitimately all about opening up the Phoenix Rising Energy Center and how spirit always has a plan. You just have to lean into it and trust it. I'm going to be honest with you. I legitimately had no plans on opening a whole center. I just, at the time, spontaneously needed a new office space. And then that office space turned into having multiple office spaces and a ton of resources for a new metaphysical community center of sorts that's still growing and developing. And it's really funny because I was so proud of myself for achieving this, to finally get a lease signed and all that stuff. I thought I'd done amazing stuff. And as I tell people, a couple days after that, I'm like, good for me. I'm such a big boy. All of a sudden, I get message that spirits like laughing at me, and they're like, "Oh, he thinks this is all there is for him." And then they laid out this whole concept for me for the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm also okay with that. You give me the assignment, whatever the assignment is, and I'm going to do my best to A++ it and get it done.
Well, and it's just a testament to your faith in really trusting everything that comes into your path is for a reason. And when you say yes, things just unfold naturally and easily. So for those who feel like they may be too sensitive or unsure of trusting their instincts, what advice would you offer them?
Well, first, I'm going to say there's no such thing as feeling too much. I grew up in an environment where I was told that I felt too much, that I had thin skin, and I needed to thicken up my skin. That's bull. That's just plain bull. That's just general society trying to wedge your squareness into a round peg and try to get you to fit in with everybody else. I really feel that society, the powers that be, Big Brother, work really hard at getting each of us to doubt the first things that pop into our minds and to second think it. And then also we fear into everything. And that's the holdback. Once you can get past the second guessing and going with the stuff that clicks in first thing, that's usually the right way to go, and step through the flame of fire and be okay with that. Sometimes everything is just meant to make your life easier. The struggle is really us trying to swim upstream instead of just lifting our feet up and letting the current take us where spirit wants us to be. There's a pre-plan that we may or may not be conscious of. And I've learned through my life anyways so far that if you just give into it and trust, I am a big component of faith. I've always had a lot of faith and trust. Faith and hope are really, people lack it. They need to find it. The more faith you have, the more likely you're going to really make an amazing empire for yourself in one way or another.
Yeah, even if it's from within, right? When you think about faith, that's just kind of a knowing. It's just a knowing that things are going to be all right, despite what it looks like at this current moment and in this current situation, even if it's really overwhelming or something you don't feel quite comfortable stepping into, having the knowing that really all is well. And whatever you decide to do is actually what you're supposed to be doing. So, if you could go back and speak to the version of yourself who was running from this path, what would you say to James back then?
I would definitely say let go of the fear. Don't let fear drive the car, because it's always going to drive you in the wrong direction of where you want to be. Fear is a big component for everybody, and it was definitely a big component for me through my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Fear of being different, fear of success, fear of living your purpose. So yeah, that was the real big candidate for me. The other element that everybody wants to know the whole plan before they'll do anything. So for me, it was also the not knowing kind of thing. But spirit is never going to tell you everything at once. They're always going to breadcrumb the hell out of you and just give you one or two pieces until you take that step. So that was a big component for me. And it's funny to talk to other people who I'm mentoring in one way or another. And they're like, I want to know the whole plan. I'm like, well, that's never going to happen, because each breadcrumb is a lesson in trust, in faith. And spirit needs to see that before they'll give you the next serving. So those were the elements for me: to control the fear, realize that it doesn't control every choice you make, and trusting the unknown, because the mystery is where the magic is.
That's very valuable advice. And if only we could speak to our younger selves. But then again, that breadcrumb was supposed to be there, because then you wouldn't be here right now doing what you're doing. So, James, what's next for you? What exciting new prospect are you looking forward to?
So there's a number of things that I have sort of scheduled. Like I said, I'm increasing the Phoenix Rising Synergy Centers. Inside that, I will have a fully functional tea cafe, in addition to all the other things that I have going on. So that'll be really fun. More office spaces, more practitioners. I'm also already scheduling larger gallery readings. I do stuff throughout the area. I also would like to be starting my own book by the end of the year. I think I have a lot to share. I would love to start doing some retreats. So yeah, I'm also part of the Soulful Journey Sundays, which is a group virtual gallery reading group that I have been invited to, and I will be starting to work with them. So I am open to opportunity. I am open to new experiences, and I'm really just waiting for spirit to drop the next thing in my lap and say, run. So,
is there room in the schedule? Because boy, that is a packed schedule. I'm excited about the tea cafe. Yeah, I feel like that book is definitely calling your name. How do people keep in touch with you? How do they connect with you? Where can they find you?
well, I have most of the socials, but the easiest way is through my link tree. So Linktree is the Unintentional Psychic. That will take you to my scheduler. That will take you to my classes and events page. That'll take you to my Facebook, Instagram, all of it. It's really the best landing place for that. And then even in that Linktree, you can find a branch to the Phoenix Rising Synergy Center Linktree and get more information about the center and all the different practitioners that work there with me. So yeah, I love my Linktree.
Linktree is a saver. Yes, definitely. Because otherwise you'd have a bajillion links. But James O. Joseph Jr., I want to thank you for sharing your journey from denial to divine alignment. It just shows us that surrender isn't a weakness. It's trust and trusting in your intuition, trusting in your inner guidance and spirit, but trusting that you're being guided, even when the road doesn't make sense. And as we wrap up today's episode, we're reminded that sometimes the path we resist the most is the one that leads us home. Whether you see yourself in James's story or you're just beginning to listen to the quiet nudges within, know this: your path is valid, your gifts are real, and your soul knows exactly where it's going. Thanks for listening today, and thank you so much, James.
It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorouslight.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at @tohumishuman. Until next time, keep humming.